and that is AB 2748.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 2748 is designed to bring some justice to some of the largest environmental catastrophes in recent memory. And of course, that is the folks still suffering fallout from the Exide battery plant lead contamination in and around the city of Vernon, and then also the victims of the Aliso Canyon natural gas leak in Porter Ranch. The Aliso Canyon disaster, which is freshest in a lot of people's minds, is best illustrated by the calls that I received last year around Thanksgiving and around Hanukkah and around Christmas. And these were calls from homeowners who had bought a house in that community, and they had, in many cases, scrimped and saved for years to buy that house. The house was everything that those families came to believe in. It was their biggest investment by far, as a house typically is. It was their home, and it had all the sentimental attachments that a home typically conjures up in these families. And I got call after call after call from families who were in absolute tears because they had not been home to their home throughout the holidays and then some. And that, of course, was because of the contamination with this leak. The bill started out as a way to quantify the difference in home value that people suffered when an environmental disaster occurred. That was obviously something if houses were selling at a certain metric at a given time and then they went down in value, we wanted to be able to provide some kind of compensation for these families. We then realized with the guidance of the Assembly Judiciary Committee that there were some other things that needed to be remedied as well in this area. For example, extending the statute of limitations by 1 year seemed to make sense because these claims are very complicated. There are people who are not even aware of their rights as much as you can believe that, and there's people who hesitate to bring claims because they're just trying to sort their life out. They're just trying to get back home, make sure that their families are safe, decide if they're going to sell their home, and so this bill extends the statute of limitations by 1 year. It also authorizes the court to award reasonable attorney fees in a very narrow area of cases, which is private nuisance cases. Practitioners on the panel know how rare those cases are. They're so difficult to prove. But if you can actually go to court and prove in a private civil action that something is a nuisance, and you go to all the hassle of proving it, and you front the fees for 5, 10 years that these cases take, and a court or a jury has determined that there is indeed a private nuisance, this would provide for attorney's fees for the prevailing plaintiff. And of course, that is to bring some metric of justice in our court system. And finally, and I think this is the key part of the bill, 2748 will ensure that any payment or reimbursement that is made to settle with these environmental disasters by a polluter will not be conditioned upon the settling party signing away all future claims. There are about 100 wells at Porter Ranch. Many of them are quite old. There was one that was leaking, and this well was the one that was primarily responsible for the emissions that we saw. At first, the companies that were settling these claims were asking the homeowners to sign away their rights if any of the other 99 wells would leak ever again for all time. I mean, that is such an injustice that it offends all of us, even those of us who are in favor of settlements. We worked very hard to get this bill just right. We sent it back to Judiciary Committee in the Assembly to let them mull some additional amendments. We came up with a compromise measure, and that's what is in front of you, and I would ask for your support of this measure.
Much, and I appreciate the work you've done on this. Just one comment: there is the concept environmental disaster might possibly get tightened up. I don't think it's enough to kill the bill, but as you go forward, I think that would be very helpful if we could get a definition that's tighter. I don't know if that is something that you have considered, but certainly I appreciate the effort that's made here, and we'll entertain a vote when
Senator,
we get our...
if I may?
Yeah.
we've limited this bill to just Porter Ranch and just Exide. So the definition of environmental disaster, I believe, I see your staff perhaps jumping to disagree, but that was very contentious in our House, and we limited it to just those environmental disasters.
So by geography.
By geography,
All
yeah.
right. Very
Two neighborhoods, yeah. So, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
And with me, I've got the illustrious Elise Sanguinetti, who is here to testify in support of the bill, and some other witnesses as well.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I want to thank you. My name is Elise Sanguinetti. I'm the president of the Consumer Attorneys of California. I'm also here as a representative of many of the families that have been affected by the Aliso Canyon natural gas well disaster. My firm represents a lot of those individuals and a lot of households. So I see firsthand from talking to them and hearing about their concerns that this bill, this proposal will make an enormous difference. I want to explain a little bit how. The bill would do two very, very important things. First, it would stop the abusive practice of forcing a family or a business. There's a lot of businesses that are involved in this as well. A lot of them are dealing, they're obviously, they're displaced. They're now coming back to their homes. Their main concern is making sure that their home is in good living condition when they return to it. If they need immediate recovery for any property damage issues that exist, they should not be signing away their rights for any personal injury or future property damage that arises later. So this bill addresses that very real concern that we see with a lot of these victims, both businesses, as I said, and with homeowners. It's unconscionable that they would otherwise, if they needed immediate relief, would have to sign away their rights for the future. The second issue is that the bill will also extend the statute of limitations, as the Assembly member just mentioned, and this is very critical. It extends the statute of limitations for 1 year, giving the residents the needed time to resolve their claims. I think this is very critical because what the hope is for all of us is that we can get these claims resolved without the need to file litigation. By giving this additional year, it allows us to work with the contaminators and work with them and try to come up with resolutions rather than flooding the courts with a lot of litigation. So obviously some litigation has been filed and it's proceeding, but there are a lot of potential litigants, a lot of victims that have not filed yet. And this will really allow an opportunity to work with the other side to try to come up with resolutions rather than them having to run to the courthouse to protect their statute. So AB 2748 is intended to provide relief to those families and small businesses that are in crisis and need help. And I respectfully ask for a vote in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses, 2 minutes. Thank you.
Kyle Jones with Sierra Club, California, and also for the California League of Conservation Voters, also in strong support. We were deeply distraught with what happened in Aliso Canyon and what has continued to happen over the years at the Exide plant. We're very happy that the legislature is taking many steps to rectify those terrible situations for those people down there, and AB 2748 is just another piece of the puzzle that needs to come together. We agree it's completely unconscionable to condition needed aid on waiving of rights for citizens. Clearly, there's a huge bargaining disparity when you have recently homeless individuals just trying to get the help they need, and these polluting entities. And additionally, another concern is that a lot of times with these emergencies, you have latent health issues that aren't necessarily at the forefront of people's mind, particularly with Exide, I think lead exposure is dangerous not only to families now, but any kids that they may have in the future, any children down there now. And oftentimes people are just trying to get back home, back to their jobs, and back to where they need to be to get their lives on track, and not necessarily thinking, well, I might have a child with developmental disabilities later, or some of those things. And so making sure that those rights aren't waived away, I think, is critically important when you have such disasters like these, and we urge your aye vote today. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support?
Madam Chair, member Cesar Diaz, on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council, for those reasons already stated, in support.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses, please, in support, name and affiliation.
Hi, Tim Molina on behalf of Courage Campaign in support.
Thank you very much. Witnesses in opposition? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Chris, and members. Chris McHaley on behalf of the Civil Justice Association of California. First, do want to acknowledge our extensive work with Assemblyman Gatto and his staff as he described to you the several iterations of the bill. Clearly, he has narrowed it to Porter Ranch and the Exide facility. We still have two fundamental concerns. One is the adverse precedent that we believe would be set, and what are the practical implications of the bill. As you well know, California has a strong policy towards settlement of claims. I think that's set forth in the Civil Code in 1541, and in 1542, people can in fact waive future unknown claims. It must be accompanied by evidence acknowledging that. We think that the practical implications of the bill is that it's going to drag out litigation and be adverse to settlement. And so for that reason, we are opposed to the measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in opposition?
Madam Chair, members, Manny Diaz, representing the California railroad industry. We do appreciate what the author has been doing here, and I was narrowing the bill down, but for the same reasons that were stated previously by the opposition, we share that concern. So we still remain opposed.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in opposition? All right, we'll bring it back to the members. I want to thank you for your efforts here. You know, there comes a point in time where we really do need to try as best we can to protect the public. I wanted to make a comment on the extension of the statute of limitations. There are some instances where this is a good thing to extend a statute, some instances where it is not, where evidence gets old and memories get kind of tempered with age, then there's really a question whether justice is best served by those. In this case, however, and I'm reminded of what we did a decade ago in extending the statute of limitations in some personal injury matters, to allow people at different sides to come together and try to negotiate. I think this has been a positive for the courts and a positive for our justice system, and think in this circumstance, given the complexity and the delays sometimes in identifying some of these injuries, that is also an appropriate way to address the problem. So again, there are some concerns. I understand what they are, but I think in these instances, and the bill's been limited significantly to these two instances, it's a good measure. I appreciate your efforts, and if we can get a quorum, I assume we will have a motion. So if you'd like to briefly close.
I ask for your vote when the time comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Assemblymember Gatto. And up next is Assemblymember Irwin, file item 11. We do go in file order here, so good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator and members. I am here for AB 2143. Existing law allows title companies and financial institutions to electronically record certain documents with county reporters, provided that they register with the Department of Justice and meet minimum liability agreements. AB 2143 will expand the types of documents that can be recorded to include all digital legal documents. This bill will allow more entities to submit documents electronically once they meet regulations adopted by the Attorney General. The bill originally allowed entities to record documents electronically if they provided proof of $1 million of general liability insurance. Your committee has raised the issue of whether $1 million is enough. For this reason, I'm proposing that the Department of Justice, as part of creating a new regulatory framework, also determine the appropriate amount of general liability insurance needed. Since 2004, e-recording has proven to be safe, efficient, and cost-effective for both private, enterprise, and government entities, and it's time to bring California into the 21st century. Thank you.
Support.
I'm the Chief Deputy Recorder County Clerk for San Diego County, and also the co-chair of the Legislative Committee for the County Recorders Association of California. Our office has been e-recording for over a year now. It has proven to be highly efficient for not only our office, but the other more than 20 counties in California that have been e-recording since this law was passed in 2003 and effective in 2004. Currently, there are digital documents that are recorded. There are 3 types that are allowed to be recorded under the current law: assignments of deed of trust, reconveyances, and assignments of trustee. Those were the first 3. It's proven to be very effective and efficient. In this law, the AB 2143 would expand the use of digital documents being allowed through the e-recording in California. Also, if this were to pass as it's current, the bill, it would allow an expansion of the current submitters. We anticipate that we would see current new submitters through attorneys that handle real estate law, and also companies that record a lot of lien releases, and the full reconveyances and substitutions of trustee that currently do not qualify because they're not title companies. They are companies that handle those for banks. So, and I urge your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in support?
Madam Chair, I'm Stan Wigg with the California Association of Realtors. We were the original sponsors of Mr. Leno's bill, which put electronic recording in place in California. This is an experiment that's proven its worth over the last decade and a half. It really does work, but what's happened is that commerce has grown beyond the digitized document, the scanned document, to the digital document. We find now that about 90% of our transactions involve digital forms, and we have found that they are more secure than a scanned or a faxed form because the documents themselves reveal whether or not they've been tampered with. As a result, we are very comfortable with that, and we strongly urge your support for the bill.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support?
Hammer with the California State Association of Counties here in support.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, I count 4 members. I think we have a quorum, so let's please call the roll, and then Senator Hertzberg, you had a question? Okay, well, very good. We haven't established a quorum yet. No, that's quite all right. Let's do it quickly before we lose our quorum. All right.
Jackson?
Here.
Jackson here. Morlock? Morlock here. Anderson? Hertzberg? Hertzberg here. Leno? Leno here. Monning? Wachowski?
All right, we do have our quorum finally. So we will even be able to entertain a motion, but first we'll start Senator Hertzberg. Any questions?
Yeah, this idea of electronic records, do you know, I apologize, I didn't read the actual text of the bill, which I usually do, so I apologize. But does it allow, is this done in machine readable code so that someone can actually, is it form based or is it content based, do we know? Because this is a question of this adding more data, but actually being able to search it. Do we know?
The documents are required, except for the 3 types, they're scanned documents, they're scanned originals. And then the recorder's offices then index certain parts of that document.
But I guess what I'm trying to understand is this. Is it, when a document's scanned, like one of the challenges that we face with the Secretary of State's office, it's a document-based database. So you can, like what you do when you go to a courthouse, you look up a docket. And then when you look up the docket, there's certain databases that when you go to the docket, or if it's a recording document or whatever the case may be, you go to the docket, you can see the documents there, but you have to go someplace to actually read it, right? Machine readable means that there's certain kinds of electronic recordations that allow you to actually scan the content. So if I was looking for common interests on real estate transactions or whatever these documents are, they can be recorded, I can look for them. Do you know if that provides for this? Because it's a very different thing in terms of what the outcome is.
No.
No, it doesn't, or no?
No, this does not provide for machine readable. The digital documents would just mean that they're coming in digitally. They would be easier to do the OCR, the optical character recognition, if they're digital than if they are scanned originals. But it does not provide to have the data actually sent to the portals.
Do we know if there's any additional costs associated with the different kind of because you're not just recording the cover page. of whatever the document is. You're actually scanning the entire, every single page, so we have it electronic, or it's not scanning it, you're getting it in electronic
We're getting it electronically.
Right,
The
so you have
cost-
an electronic version, so you're allowed to receive an electronic version. Do we know whether, I apologize, I just thought of this as I'm sitting here now, so trying to move government more accessible into the modern era, like Google basically scans books, right? And they have 192 million books or something, and you can search every book for a common theme. Can we do that with government? Is it that much harder to do? It would be great to take it to that next level simultaneously, rather than having all these electronic documents and then having to recode everything and all over again. You know, I'm facing that with the stuff we've been working on last year.
Currently, it would depend on each recorder's back-end system, and it does not today, they're not consistent across the state. So it would, each recorder's office only indexes a very few pieces, so we don't have the ability to maintain that level of data. We record it, like in our county, over probably 750,000 documents a year. So we do not, we don't have plans to maintain that level of digital data that's searchable, if that makes sense. But I do know what you're saying. I do understand. We have looked at, Google has done a presentation to our association to show what can be done, and some other states' recorder's offices are doing that level. And it's mostly used when those documents are viewable on the internet, and in California that isn't possible. We're not allowed to put those documents on the internet. Those can only be viewed in the recorder's offices.
You know, just last point, the federal government and their court system, I don't know if you know this, Madam Chair, but you know, when you go to the federal court system and you want to read a document, you can actually go click on the docket and then hit the button and you get it, and you can actually page through the actual document and get the full document, as opposed to just, you know, here's a record of it existing and you can read it. But they don't go as far as allowing you to have cross-searching for common themes, or that way you wouldn't have to go and separatize a case or research it that way. You just look up the code section, and every case that dealt with the code section would show up, right? It's just so much more available in terms of the modern system. So I don't know if we can do that now, but it's certainly worth where we ultimately need to go with this stuff to make it valuable to the everyday person.
Would this system then, with that in mind, would it sort of be a precursor? Would it be the foundation from which we could then be doing the much more modernized approach to research and so forth?
I am not a technical expert, but I can tell you that in my opinion, in my experience, digital documents are better for scanning and getting the optical character recognition than the scanned documents. They're just much clearer. We have a higher percentage of acceptance on those documents when they are submitted, because they are much cleaner and legible. So they'll be easier to do the OCR, the optical character recognition. And even if we don't have that capability today, we maintain those images into perpetuity, so it's something that always can be added and can be done.
Any other questions? And as I understand, you're willing to take that amendment, and I don't have any problem with that. Just the $1 million amount in today's world won't cover, in many instances, you know, half a house. So let's, you know, I think the Attorney General has the ability to ascertain what is, you know, an acceptable risk process. And with that amendment, I think that does help. It certainly resolves my concerns. Any other question? Very good. We have a motion to move the bill as amended. Any further debate or discussion? Seeing none, Assemblymember Irwin, you can, all right, ask for an aye vote. Very good. This is our first bill we'll be voting on. This is due pass as amended. We have a quorum. Due pass as amended to Senate appropriations. Please call the roll.
Jackson?
Aye.
Jackson, aye. Morlock? Aye. Morlock, aye. Anderson? Hertzberg? Hertzberg, aye. Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Monning? Wachowski?
Aye.
Wachowski, aye.
That bill has 5 votes. We'll leave the roll open for the absent members. Thank you, Ms. Irwin. Yes.
Consent calendar.
That's a good place to start. We have a motion on the consent calendar. Please call the roll.
Jackson?
Aye.
Jackson, aye.